Welcome everyone to the first event in the user experience group of the New York Technology Council of the Year. Delighted to have you all here. It's going to be an exciting year for NYTEC and particularly for the user experience track. We first want to thank our annual sponsors. Also want to mention our partner organizations. New York Technology Council believes in being a part of the greater community and working with lots of other organizations. And also want to note our media partners. We'll be doing more with them this year than we have in the past. Want to thank Anchin, in whose space we are tonight. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Charles. Charles Mauro.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. This is our start of our second year. Last year we did 5 events. It's really great to see a lot of common faces. I think we're building a very nice group. And this year we have a couple of amazing series coming up. First, a couple of minor points. We have a new Twitter site. If you follow us, you'll find that all of the latest updates, which we have that relate specifically to NYTEC UX group, will be posted on Twitter. We're also going to manage a Twitter stream there on the latest research on UX. Emily Fisher from our firm, Research Analyst, will be managing that data. And so easiest way to keep up with us is through our Twitter account. Eric mentioned very briefly, we've got a terrific new series starting at the end of this month. It's a 4-part series on mobile UX. And just to go quickly over the first session here, it's Theory and Practice of Mobile. We've got Tom Rees from Google, who's head of global strategy for mobile for Google. And the second speaker in that evening will be Jason Thurman. I don't know if many of you know Jason, but he's a professor, assistant professor at the University of Maryland, but he wrote a terrific new book that has just come out, Interface Theory, Embodied Space, and Locative Media. Was selected as the #1 new media research book in 2012. Great speaker, very interesting first session. Part 2, we'll have the science and technique of UX interaction behaviors. We've got a very interesting speaker there, talking about gestures, small spaces, and spatial landscapes in interconnected devices. Then we've got an optimization session. We're going to talk extensively about mobile research, special applications related to mobile from the standpoint of user experience optimization. And then the final part in May will be a series of leading designers, and we'll be talking about their tools of preference for UX simulation, testing, and design. This is a great series. I think registration is available now or next week, I'm not sure. Okay, so moving right along, I'd like to introduce Paul Thurman, tonight's speaker. Paul is a very highly regarded expert in experience optimization. I personally worked with Paul for just almost 20 years. Whenever my firm has a particularly difficult research problem, we call on Paul, and I think he's been an incredible resource for the field overall. Paul has a MS in Math from Stanford and an MBA from Columbia. He has extensive professional experience as well. Everyone has to have their stint at the big consulting firms. He was at Booz for a number of years and did the corporate side at Amex. Currently, Paul, in addition to his very active consulting practice, teaches at Columbia MBA program at the School of Public Health. But most interestingly, every time I try and get a hold of Paul, he's somewhere in the world here. I mean, I don't know where he ends up teaching these business courses, but everywhere from Russia to Brazil, Singapore. A very highly sought after lecturer. As I said, he has very active consulting business and has written a number of books. Probably one of the most interesting is the fundamental statistics for MBAs. If any of you are interested in sort of how to actually read more complex research data, that's an extremely well-written text. Okay, so Paul's specialization is essentially parsing very complex consumer behaviors for optimization in business. So he's going to take us through the research that's come to light over the last, let's say, 18 months to 2 years, but he's going to frame it in the context of research that's been out there for a long time. So he's going to talk, let's say, for example, about usability testing and sample size. And we all know that that's been a topic ever since Jacob Nielsen put up, his ridiculous piece about 15 years ago. So he's going to give us insight in all of these sort of traditional forms of research that impact UX and what's basically moved forward. So, Paul, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Charles. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi out there. Welcome. User experience starts with you. This is what happens when you tell your 10-year-old daughter what you're talking about, and she comes up with the title. But I want you to remember the 10-year-old and the 6-year-old daughter, because they're actually the customer. You're not. All right? And they're the ones we designed for. We're not. It's interesting to note that you talk about Nielsen's work and other users and experiences that are out there. To a certain extent, as a statistician or as a data analyst, I actually don't care what you do. I don't care what you buy. I don't care what you look at on the website. I don't care what you peruse before you abandon your shopping cart. But I do care very deeply how you do it. And that's actually really difficult to codify, to collect data on, to put together databases to track over time, etc. So that's the tough part. The tough part is not figuring out what it is that you do. That's easy, knowing where you went, what sites you hit, etc. But figuring out how you did it and why you did it. That's the tough part. And the interesting part, and actually the place where there's a lot of opportunity, is almost all the research science that's out there, which is probably mostly newer than the United States. So within the past 200 years, let's say, most of the statistical theory has been out there for a while, has been used. A lot of it still focuses on what you did and looking retrospectively back at what you did. The new frontiers are actually trying to figure out how you did it and why you did it and why you wanted that experience. Figuring out what you experienced is easy. Figuring out why you wanted that experience, that's hard. So here's your first pop quiz. Notice, these are smartphones. Picture. Phrase, these are smartphones. Question, how much faster does your mind process the picture versus the words on the right? Give me an order of magnitude. How much faster? The brain will process an image much, much faster than it will process text because you actually have to read the text. And you have to know something about language parsing and being able to know that there's a noun and a verb and so forth, it's object and so on. How much faster? 10 times faster? 100 times faster? 1,000? 2,000? Oh, 2 times, twice as fast. Sorry. Twice as fast, right? 60,000 times faster your brain processes the picture than it does the text. So no wonder that we finally got to phones and computers and things that actually are picture-based as opposed to text-based. All right? You ever wonder why your kids figure out the iPad long before you did? This is why. They just think about it that way. Okay? 60,000 times faster your mind will process a picture. By the way, when I say process a picture, I don't mean just look at it and realize, oh, that's a picture. But actually process the context, the color, what you're looking at. All right, notice there were 3 smartphones with several different colors, one of which screen you saw. That's much richer content than these are smartphones. All right? Yet both purportedly say the same thing. But that's how much faster the mind will process a picture than text. So maybe we ought to get pretty good at speaking in pictures. There's a challenge with speaking in pictures, though. It's really hard to figure out the code, all right? Hard to figure out what you look at in the picture and how you process that, aside from the fact that it happens really fast. Figuring out what picture you looked at, easy. Figuring out what you did when you looked at the picture, that's hard. But recent research, like within the past 2 to 3 years, some folks out of MIT G Labs as well as some folks at the University of Colorado say the following. It turns out that beautiful actually is usable. All right? I remember taking a music class in college and the professor started to play Happy Birthday. Why does Happy Birthday sound like it makes sense? Okay, it's like Stephen Wright's famous line, why is the alphabet in that order? Is it because of that stupid song? All right? Why is the alphabet come in that order? Beautiful means usable. Turns out if people actually like the way something looks, it's simply more usable to them. Even if underneath it, it's actually more complicated, it will appear more usable. It will be more user-friendly. People will perceive and truly believe that they can interoperate and work with that frame more easily if they think it looks good. It's very simple, okay? If it looks nice, it likely makes an impression. It's memorable, so your brain will process 60,000 times faster repeatedly on it. Visual will grab you much faster than text, per the last slide. Now, it's true that beauty may be in the eye of the beholder, but beauty is not blind, okay? It actually matters. And if you don't believe that, then why don't you all have Windows phones? Okay, it's the same colors, largely the same boxes. Why are you preferring some other device? What is it about it? Okay, so it turns out that actually thinking about beautiful or good looking actually means usable. And things that don't look good, even if they operate better, simply will not be adopted as quickly. Again, I don't care what you do. I'm trying to figure out why you do it. Well, here's the age-old question we'll try to answer tonight once and for all. Does size matter? Okay, does sample size matter? The statistical theory around this goes back to R.A. Fisher, an English agronomist actually, credited with coming up with a lot of statistical theory around hypothesis testing and confidence intervals, although that was Pearson's gig. But the whole idea here is, how much do I need to look at, if I can't look at everything, to try and figure out what everything looks like? So what are the 3 or 4 or 300 or 400 things I need to look at and observe to try to get a picture of what you look like without being able to possibly collect all the data? How do I do that? Well, the way we do it today is in usability labs. We take a product, we take an iPad, we take a Droid phone, we take a shock absorber, we take a cup holder in a car, we take whatever it is that somebody's going to use, and we put it in front of people and let people play with it. And we see how they use it. Thousands and tens of thousands of volunteers and paid volunteers, which is kind of an oxymoron, all right? Folks are brought in these usability labs and thrown products and said, play with, we will observe, we will take video, right? Turns out about 90% of the insight you get out of that is largely repetitive, useless, all right? I actually don't need to look very much to get a pretty good idea about what the whole looks like. I can actually survey 1,000 Americans and have a really good idea of who's going to win a presidency or a Senate race, all right? Now again, that's old news. But for some reason, people believe that we need to look at more stuff and we need to test it even longer with thousands of people. By the way, statistical theory, which is at least 100 years old, 18th century, is that more accurate? No. I don't need a lot. By the way, anybody born on December 8th by any chance? December 8th? How about July 7th? July 7th? October 23rd maybe?
24th.
That's not the 23rd, but it's close, all right? But it's close, all right? There's about, I don't know, 60 people, 50 people in here. It doesn't take very long to find 2 people with the same birthday. It doesn't take long at all, actually. In fact, with about 50 to 60 people, you're going to have about a 70 to 75% chance of finding 2 people with the same birthday. So all I need is 50 or 60 people to have redundant information on birthdays. I just don't need that many people, all right? December 8th happens to be one of my kids' birthdays, so we failed on that one. But it happens. Try it sometime. It doesn't take a lot of people to find redundant information. It doesn't find a lot, you don't have to survey a lot of people before people start to agree, all right? So knowing that more people agree, actually at some point, not only becomes costly because you had to ask them, but it becomes useless, all right? Clinical trials. So I've spent a fair amount of time in the drug world as a researcher, all right? Just out of curiosity, take any drug you like, Zocor, Lipitor, aspirin, probably a bad example, aspirin. It's over 100 years old, but pick a prescription drug, all right? How many people was that drug tested on before the Food and Drug Administration released it so that you could buy it and put it in your body? Give me a number. 10? 5,000? 1,000? 40,000? About 600-700 people. That's it. Any drug that can be prescribed to you maybe had 500 or 600 people ingest it and have side effects and possibly die from it or get cured by it. before it was released by the Food and Drug Administration, okay? I'm sure some of you have that many friends on Facebook or that many LinkedIn contacts. A phase 1 clinical trial of a drug where we're just trying to figure out the dose level, which means we're going to pump you full of the drug and keep ratcheting it up until you start to feel side effects, just to figure out how much your body can tolerate. 20 people. If we figure that out, we go to phase 2 clinical trial, where we try to figure out side effects. Can the body tolerate this drug, pass it through the liver? Will there be creatinine clearance and all these other things such that the drug actually gets out of the body, doesn't build up, and it doesn't kill you in the process or doesn't malform you or hurt you in some way? All right? 50 people. So now up to 70, maybe 100, 150. All right? Phase 3. Now we're trying to figure out if there's actually efficacy. Turns out it's the third phase of a clinical trial where you have to do 2 phases of a clinical trial before you even figure out if the drug works or not. Now there you'll have 200 or 300 people, if you're lucky. All right? So maybe 500 people have touched every drug that you've bought that was tested on, and it's released. You don't need a lot of people and a lot of sample size to get it. So all those terabytes of data of people using web servers and people hitting phone apps and people hitting iPad apps or phone calls into call centers, the vast majority of that is redundant. You don't need that much, okay? I'm here to tell you folks, if you're trying to solve a big data problem with user information, user interface design, user experience, and you think you need something bigger than an Excel spreadsheet to handle it, you should rethink it. Yes, there's tons of people who know how to code in SAS and SPSS and Minitab and all these other tools, Stata included. But that's if you're trying to do sort of very interesting, very advanced stuff that parses data and cuts it in different ways and does more advanced statistical tests. All right? If you really need more than a spreadsheet full of data to do stuff, you've probably got a lot of data that's repetitive. It's actually quality data. It's different data. The more different observations you have that matters. Okay, Henry Ford had a dilemma. When Henry Ford came out with the automobile, developed this, if you had asked customers, if you had asked a lot of customers at the time he came out with the automobile, and you asked customers, what do you want? Hey customer, come here. Customer survey. What do you want? What would they have said? They want a faster horse. Okay? So then I'll throw Jobs in once in the presentation. Jobs is famous for saying, well, users don't always know what they want, so we'll design stuff that we think they want and see if it grabs. All right? Does anybody actually know what an iPad is for? How many of you have them? How many have iPads? Why? Why? What fundamental user need or experience does it give you? Well, you didn't. Pardon me? Newspapers early in the morning. Yeah, on a slightly larger screen than the phone, perhaps. Yeah, good point. So there's some things. What?
Browsing the web while watching TV.
Yep, absolutely. So there are some needs that it satisfies, okay? But you didn't have those until the device existed, right? And it didn't take a lot of people to figure that out. The statistical theory around sample size is actually old. Nothing new here. However, using sample sizes to figure out how to design interfaces better, especially when they're visual, when they're picture-based, that's actually very, very new. So any grad student that came out of an MBA program or any engineering school, any master's program who had to take a semester of stats actually already knows more than the theory required to figure out a sample size. Okay? The problem, though, is if you start to ask a whole lot of people what they want and what they think is important, what do you end up getting? Things that are much more complicated. You get more feature sets. Okay? You end up getting phones that can do all kinds of things that you don't know how to do yet. That you don't want to know how to do yet. More options, that would imply better choice. So if I can create products or websites or applications that allow me to do more things and give me more optionality, then that should be good for me, right? Turns out the research is exactly backwards on that. Sheena Iyengar and Geeta Johar at Columbia Business School have come out with a great deal of research on consumer choice. How do you actually decide? So they did a really simple test. They went to a Whole Foods in Palo Alto, California, when one of them was a grad student at Stanford, and they put out 6 different kinds of cheeses. and let consumers pick which one they liked and saw which one they would buy. Then they did it with 3 cheeses. Which vendor sold more cheese? The one that had fewer choices. Okay? So it's great to go ask a lot of people what they want, but if you start to design to that, it turns out that an ever-diminishing fraction will actually find that particular feature valuable. So there's all this talk about big data and getting lots of customer impressions and boiling that down to something. The boiling down actually doesn't happen. Oh, and by the way, what's one of the best sample sizes and probably the most modal sample size, meaning most frequent sample size that people use? N equals 1. How'd you find your doctor? How'd you find the doctor you use?
Reference.
Reference from whom? Friend? Sister? Brother? N equals 1. A bunch of the things, your health care. You picked somebody to give you drugs and put you into a hospital based on a sample size of 1. Okay? Didn't you? Right? How'd you pick your retirement plan at your company? Sample size of maybe 3 or 4 options. All right? So N equals 1 actually is a pretty important sample size. All right? Yet there's this pervasive belief that with all this statistical stuff that's out there, we actually need really big sample sizes to do some really cool stuff. Yeah, some really complicated stuff that actually results in people actually having a harder time making a choice and making a decision. Tom Davenport up at Harvard wrote a book in 2007, I think, Big Data, or they're competing on analytics. So this was a seminal work where everybody got bitten by the information bug. All right, hey, we got all this data out there. Let's go hire a bunch of people to farm this stuff. Go nuts on it. All right? So there's big data. The only problem is out of big data usually comes very little information. And even less knowledge, which is information put to use, which is even less wisdom, which is information put to use that's transferable to the next group of people or generation. All right? Think about all the things you learned as a kid, but now remember the 2 or 3 phrases you learned from your dad about how to live life, right? Speaking of, my dad Clovis had a very famous phrase. Not a famous phrase, but famous to me. Son, do you know what the difference between knowledge and wisdom is? No, Dad, I don't. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing it does not belong in a fruit salad. Okay? That's the difference. Tons of data out there, but very little of it turned into information, less into knowledge, less into wisdom. We are data rich and we are information poor. And we design to data. We can do better by designing to information. In fact, it's making data and feature sets smaller that is becoming the norm in usability theory. Not giving you 6 options, but giving you 2 or 3. And by the way, if I give you 2 or 3 options 2 or 3 times, I can actually figure out which of 12 or 16 options you'll really like. There's an easy statistical way to do that. Speaking of, interesting stat number 1. There's 6 tonight. This is the first one. Anybody use Microsoft Word? Heard of this tool? Yes? All right. Who uses it? Everybody does. How much do you use it? A lot. All right. Do you happen to know how much of all the features in Microsoft Word are not used by a typical user?
98%.
It's a little bit less than that, but I bet you my number is old enough that yours is right and mine's wrong. Okay? 72%. So all that stuff. Oh, by the way, does Microsoft sell like something that's got a whole lot of features and not very many features at all? Is there a stripped down Word? Microsoft Whoa. Is there anything like that? There's Works and there's like Notepad.
Google Docs.
Google Docs. There's the free software that's out there. All kinds of ways to do it, right? Yet you just can't help but drop the $500 to get something, 3/4 of which you just won't use. Oh, and let's not talk about the statistics on Excel. Okay? All right? I need row, I need column. That's all I need. Add. Just how do I add? How do I add? Okay? My mother had a PC, God rest her soul. Okay? Most expensive notepad she ever had. All right? That was it. So lots of this stuff that we tout as great software, great usability, great interfaces, great design, largely goes unused. Think about all the buttons and places you don't go on a website. Better yet, think about all those places that your customers don't go either. Yet you design to it, and you color it, and you put a font on it, and you highlight it, and you try to get people to use it. So trend number one, which is an old trend, is segmentation. Don't treat all your customers the same. Yet, can you think of any companies where the website that pops up is different for me versus you? Can you think of one? Can you think of a website that is so customized and so segmented that it looks different to me than it looks to you? There's a few. Amazon, a little bit. A lot of retail sales sites might be gender typed. So if they know I'm a guy, when the page pops up, I see all the men's stuff that's on sale. Spotify? How so?
They know what you listen to, and they're going to provide you with trends or things they think you're going to listen to.
Exactly, much like Pandora does. If you think about that service, you know, you tell me that you like Esperanza Spalding, a prodigy on the double bass, by the way. Go buy the album. I'm telling you, she's great. All right, Esperanza Spalding. Okay, I don't know her. So she's not going to get paid for that, but it's great stuff. Anyhow, pick her channel on Pandora. And then you get music that Pandora thinks that is similar that you'll like. And then they pay attention to whether you skip over it or not. And they build a very simple neural network to do it. But that's basic segmentation. By the way, that's as advanced as it gets today. All right? Yet in credit cards, I can give you a card that's got a different metal, platinum, gold, silver, that has airline points of 3 different airlines, or has rewards on your building supplies, or American Express at one point came out with a wedding card, okay, namely a card to give to the bride and groom so they could spend all their money on their wedding on that card, just to capture the volume. So special events cards, all right? So segmentation, I mean, think about all the different kinds of checks you can get. Think about the different ways letters come in the mail to you. So for all this complexity that websites and user interfaces and design has, it's way behind the traditional stuff. So segmentation, yet by the way, it's much, much easier to do it electronically. Okay? I used to manage all the different mailings for American Express for credit card offers. And we had a massive matrix. Everything from gender to income, whether you owned a car, whether you had pets, whatever we could find out about you. All right? And we would try to figure out what would get you to open the envelope and fill out the credit app. Anybody ever seen the credit card applications that look like a Western Union telegram, even though no one knows what a Western Union telegram is anymore? All right. How about the ones that you open up and it looks like it has a Post-it on it that says, "Hey, Paul, check out this offer." How about those? You can thank me for that, okay? That was all my fault. That's very expensive. And by the way, women between 45 and 55 in the Chicago Midwest area will fill that out. If anybody lives near an ocean, it goes in the trash. But in that part of the country, for that age demographic, it works. We don't know why, we don't care why, but we mailed the hell out of it. Okay? And we got a lot of apps. Okay? And by the way, mail's expensive. This is free. Yet we haven't quite caught up on how to do different segmentation studies, much less the comparisons of segments. So how do you treat different people differently? How do you think about segments, not populations? How do you treat people differently on the way in and on the way out in ways that you direct, not the user? And this whole wisdom of the crowds thing, like we'll build the website or the interface that most people like, that actually doesn't work. Because then you get the average interface. How many of you look at a website and go, you know, I really wish they'd do this? Yeah, you do, and so do a bunch of people like you. And it should look like that for you. And we should be able to figure that out. Trend 2, are you angry? Do you feel angry? Anybody know who that is? Angry Birds. Okay. Charles has got a great piece on this, and if you haven't read it, you need to read it. If you've read it, you need to read it again. All right? Are you angry? This is the problem we wish we had. It's one thing to say, wow, this interface sucks. I don't want to use this website. I don't want to use this app. You know, why won't it scroll? Okay? But imagine having the other problem. I can't stop using this app. This online banking application rocks. When was the last time somebody said that? All right? Okay? I can't wait to shop at Sears online. Okay? What is it that makes an interface so compelling that we actually cannot stop using it?
I don't know, but my wife can't stop playing Words with Friends.
Yeah, you can't stop. Words with Friends. My kids love that game. Absolutely, Words with Friends. Words with Friends is great. There's also one, the one where you draw pictures and you send it to somebody, and they try to guess what you drew. Draw some. That's it. Yeah, can think of the name. So there's things like you just can't stop doing it, right? Well, why can't we learn from that stuff and build the apps that people want to buy stuff and transact on and spend money on? Funny, the free stuff is really compelling, but the unfree stuff is not that good. What can we do to do better? Turns out Charles and his firm have narrowed it down to basically 4 things. Simplicity. There's that thing again. Don't make Word complicated, make it simple. Let the game or the app just do what people need. Okay? I don't need to see, I love this about the Citibank iPad app. The minute I pop up, I get charts and graphs of my expenses. I really don't want to see that. Okay? I mean, I know it's there, but I don't want to know it's there, or actually technically know that it's not there. Okay? So, simplicity. Are you kidding me? A game that's got birds and stones and structures to try to bust through. That's it? That's all? Timing. So much web development, user interface development has been focused on trying to get you to remember things. Remember how to navigate the website. Remember to click the button on the right. Let's make it blue so it's obvious for you to remember to click that button. Turns out that's not what attracts people. There's something about timing and mystery. If I can teach you a little bit about how to use it, then get you to forget it. How many of you play Angry Birds? By the way, on level 106, it's the same objective. Throw the bird, knock the stuff down. Yet you forget that as you go level to level because they cleverly show you what you have to do and they back away from it so you don't see it. All right? That keeps you engaged. Timing is everything. Mystery and music. You actually don't know what the next level is going to look like, but you can't wait to get to it. So much so you will sit there at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get the one bird you can't get with the helmet on. Okay? Oh, and the music does not help at all. By the way, you want to have some fun? Try Angry Birds Rio, the Rio version, with the birds out of the movie Rio. All right? They got like all kinds of stuff going on, like the World Cup in the background. All right? And then there's the unmeasurables. Where do you think those guys that do Angry Birds make all their money? Okay, well now they've got all the cut the rope games, okay, which has Om-Nom. My daughters own Om-Nom, okay, the plush toys. They have T-shirts that say the bird is the word, chillin' like a villain. This is what their T-shirts say that they sleep in. This is happy, this is hungry, this is sad. What's sad is I know those 3 names, okay? That's who the Om-Noms are, plush toys. Far more revenue from that stuff that people get wrapped around than playing the game itself. Because it's simple. It actually makes you forget, or lets you forget. There's something mysterious about it, and you just can't stop playing it. All right? Why can't we design a banking app that does that? Why can't we apply for life insurance like that online? Interesting stat number 2. Plane crash on the left, banner ad on the right. Anybody want to guess the statistic? You are more likely to walk away from this than you are to click that. Absolutely true. You are more likely to walk away from an airline crash than you are to click a banner ad. How many of you deal with banner ads? Yeah. They take up a lot of space and they're pretty worthless. All right? You are more likely to survive an airplane crash than you are to have a customer click a banner ad. Well, to that point, speaking of highly improbable things, remember the space race? Or maybe you don't remember the space race or somebody told you about it. All right? Sputnik, the satellite that the Russians put up, little tiny thing about the size of a basketball. Yuri Gagarin, first man in space. All right? This is one of the Gemini missions. Okay, Gemini 6, I believe, is that spacecraft. That's the U.S. thing. Space race. Well, if we're going to put people up in space, turns out they figured out that these guys actually need to write on checklists and such. They need to write. There's just a small problem with being in space. No gravity. Nothing to pull the ink down to the bottom of the pen. What did NASA do? What did NASA do? Spent money to figure out how to build a pressurized pen. You can buy them online just for your next space hop, all right? All right? So they built a pen that would write in 0G so the astronauts could do their logbooks and such. What did the Russians give their astronauts? Pencils. In fact, it was so cute that somebody came out with a clever gag gift, the Russian space pen, which you can't really tell is a pencil in a box. Okay? The Russian space pen. Simplicity. Why do we overcomplicate things? Why is 3/4 of Microsoft Word unused by arguably power users? Why? Why was all that designed? Why does it cost so much? So that's trend number one. Trend number one, segmentation. Treating different customers differently. If customers don't need anything fancy, don't give them anything fancy. All right? By the way, figuring out different segments is relatively straightforward if you know something about the person, the user. Been done in all kinds of other industries for years. Really hard when it comes to putting a screen in front of people. Not because we don't have the data, but because we tend to design things for everybody, as opposed to taking the extra step. I mean, think about how many credit cards you have in your wallet right now. Think about how many screens you look at that are the same every day. Why is that? When arguably you're transacting with one much more differently and more strategically than the other. Now, Einstein had a quote about simplification and beauty. Keep models as simple as possible, but no simpler. All right, so trend number one was about sample size. Trend number two is about simplification. Attract and then treat. All right? The challenge today is we give out the candy before the kid rings the doorbell. I show you my website. I show you my app. Then I figure out who you are. Why don't we attract the people we want, who we know are going to do good stuff for us, and then treat them appropriately? Give them the interface they deserve. It's very easy to do. In fact, it's very simple to do. You just have to change the interfaces while people are watching. Or let them leave and come back and see something a little bit different. It actually keeps that mystery alive too. It makes them lose their short-term memory. That's actually very good stuff. And then they can't wait to go on to do something because they're kind of curious what's going to come next. Managing that mystery and memory. The Venus flytrap, by the way, much more effective bug killer than a fly swatter. Because a fly swatter, you have to wait for the bug to stop. And then you kill. This thing just waits for the bug. Attract and then treat. Not the other way around. So what do you do in your business? Do you sell books or do you run a library? Okay, libraries are very interesting economic animals. They contain things that people use that don't cost anything, at least to the end user, other than whatever a library card costs. So it's a really big piece of infrastructure with stuff that's used for free. All right? Any place else that you walk into a really big building and do something that requires use, you get charged for. Health club, grocery store, parking garage, basement of your house, if it needs to be cleaned that weekend. All right? But not a library. So let's talk about a national consumer electronics retailer. I can't tell you who it is, but it rhymes with test tie. All right? All right? Long-term client, full disclosure. Store visits up, profits down. Everybody loves to come to Best Buy, partly because they put Circuit City out of business, and they're the only large national consumer electronics retailer left. But profits are down. So why is everybody visiting, but profits are suffering? It's not price compression, so there's no exogenous factor in the marketplace. There's certainly incentives in place, rewards programs, there's frequent flyer miles, if you will, available for it. What's going on? What's happening? Why is this the case? Because Best Buy sells books. But as it turns out, they're actually becoming more and more a library. You know the brand. You go visit the blue shirt, but instead of buying something, you suck the blue shirt's mind dry. You learn about features. You often walk in with printouts. By the way, you do that with drugs to your doctor now too. All right? You get as much information out of this sales rep as possible, and then what do? You go price shop, or you go shop. All right? You talk about abandoned carts. How about abandoned customers? How about abandoned salespeople? All right. Best Buy today makes more money from Geek Squad on a per unit basis. That's the repair and servicing piece than they do on products. Okay. The library makes more on the reference librarian than on the books. That's a very odd model, especially for a large infrastructure, real estate heavy organization that sells products. So what's interesting is they sell products, but they give away the solution. What do? Do you sell a solution or do you sell a product? And what is it you're giving away? They're no longer salespeople at Best Buy, they're librarians. They hold the knowledge of what 1080p means, okay? Or what a megapixel is and why 8 is better than 6, okay? But Best Buy doesn't get paid for any of that. Do you? What do you do to protect your books and still able to sell them? Interesting stat number 3. In the 2011-2012 timeframe, this is sort of mid-year to mid-year, so it's a split across 2 years, but it's still a year-long period. What was the abandon rate? So take all the major e-commerce providers, sellers, your Amazons, your department stores, et cetera. What was the abandon rate? How many people put something in a cart and just walked away from it and never bought it? 60%. 30%. 10%? 100%? 5%? Over 2/3. Good guess on 60. Okay. Shopping carts full of products, ready to get bought, abandoned. Okay. By the way, that's first abandon rate, I should say. So maybe some of those people came back and bought later, but they had to restock their cart. Why'd they have to do that? If you knew what their cart was and their back, why did you make them do that? Okay. Okay. Why'd you do that to them? All right. So over 2/3 of all the shopping carts abandoned. Why? Why are people putting products in a cart ready to buy and then they walk away? A good guess. Why the attrition? Number one reason, if the delivery date of the product is more than a week out, 7 days, it gets abandoned. Top reason, 38%. Okay? I'm not going to wait that long. What's funny is you'll wait 6 days, you won't wait 7. The abandon rate at 6 days is about 11%, just as a side note. So somehow this magical 7th day is a tipping point for you, okay? Tax, shipping, and handling charges. So what started off as a $19.99 product suddenly is $54.99. Does anybody know what business Amazon.com is really in if you look at their financials and the way their business model works? Who does Amazon.com compete with? The U.S. Postal Service, UPS, and FedEx. I can give away a book for free if I'm Amazon.com, charge a handling charge. By the way, handling charge is not a direct product cost, so on an accounting basis, that's below the line. Don't have to pay taxes on that. So you can actually give away products for free and make money. Now, that's a pretty good library. That's a pretty good library. All right? But once you add all that stuff in, people abandon. It's like, whoa, I thought it was 20 bucks. Now it's 50 bucks. I'm not interested. There are pure shopping effects. Namely, people will literally use carts as a way to do their grocery lists. Namely, well, I've got to buy these things for Christmas or Hanukkah or for a birthday. How much is this? I got 8 kids. I got to do this. How much is all that going to cost? People will literally use a shopping cart as a calculator. All right? Happens all the time. And then they'll go figure out, in fact, that gets printed a lot. All right? So over half the abandons get printed. Why? Because people are collecting it. They're using, why use Excel? That's expensive. That's cheap. Okay? Offer testing. So people are smart. Consumers are smart. You're very smart. I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in my shopping cart and see if when I roll up to the cash register, they give me a deal. Load the cart, load the cart, load the cart. Check out. Oh, no deal? No fireworks? No flash across the screen? You're our third customer. You get 10% off. The hell with them. I'm out. I'll go someplace else. People will literally test the website to see if you're going to do something for them if they're a good customer. All right? By the way, popping up a blank and saying enter your offer code here, that's not good. That requires you to know too much. Okay? Simple addition works well. Amazon.com. People use Amazon a lot because one, it's got a huge, deep catalog. But it's also, because of that, you can actually make it do addition for you. It's really good at that. Addition and shipping costs. Okay, how much am I going to spend if I have to buy all this stuff? All right. People use Amazon.com as a calculator. Oh, by the way, when you buy a book on Amazon.com, or you look up a book, there's always that little line right below the book that says, if you buy this book plus this book, which a bunch of other people want, we'll charge you this price. What is that price?
Those two books added together.
It's the sum of the two prices.
It's not a deal.
It's not a deal at all, except for about 10 or 15% of their customers. They're actually starting to tweak the number now. If you're a good buyer and you're a good customer and you've got Amazon Prime and you've ordered 3 or 4 times in the past N weeks, suddenly the sum of those two prices is a little bit less, but not for everybody. Now, does that sound like that's unfair? Damn right it is. It's called segmentation. We will treat different customers differently. Better for me, I'm better for you. They're starting to play with that number. Okay? But it is interesting where, look, you can get these 2 books for exactly the price of each of them separately, but together. And people bite on that. It's like, oh, wow, that's a pretty good deal. Click. All right?
What about if you buy a certain amount that would reach the $50 level or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's the well-known one, right? If you clip the $25 level, then you're eligible for free shipping if that stuff is actually fulfilled by Amazon and it's qualifying merchandise, right? Yeah, so everybody, now, by the way, that works very well. How many of you have gotten up to $20 and you go looking for something for $5 to spend? Yes. Did you care about the $5 thing? No. But you bought $5 extra merchandise to save $5 in shipping. That's interesting. That's interesting, okay? But people do it.
We're going to spend it anyway, might as well have something.
Might as well have something that often gets tossed. But that's what, but you're absolutely right. Might as well have something for it. Because free shipping, that's not, I don't feel that. That doesn't make me feel anything. Okay? So trend number 3 we're talking about, A/B testing. This versus that. Okay? Again, go back to Fisher and Pearson and Spearman even. Test this group versus that group, this group of customers versus that group, this basket of products versus that basket of products. Are they different? Simple test of means, hypothesis test, get a p-value, do this. The stats is simple. Anybody can do it. Okay? You don't even have to know about the stats, and I can tell you exactly what to push in Excel to get it and tell you what number to look for and tell me if it's less or bigger than a certain number. All right? Easy to do. Very easy to do. But there's one big problem. By the way, this is huge now. Okay? Many, many more retailers are doing it, although, quite frankly, not as many as you would think. Less than half of online retailers actually use split testing to test to see if one offer is better than another offer. A/B tests. All right? Very few, if any, use conjoints, which is how if I've got 5 products and I'm trying to figure out which 2 you really like, I'm not going to show you all 5 and ask you what you like. I'm going to show them to you 2 or 3 at a time. So I'm going to show you these 2. I'm going to show you 2 others. And 2 others. And I'll repeat that 3 or 4 different ways, and if you think about it, it's a way for me to show you everything without asking you to pick one of everything, because you will implicitly prioritize the list. Everybody follow? So if I show you 2 people, and then me and her, and then her, and I ask you which one of those pairs you like better, you implicitly prioritize the list without me asking you to prioritize the list. People don't know how to prioritize, but they do know how to pick between 2 things. Okay? Simple prioritization. But only 44% of major online retailers or sellers actually use this software. Oh, and by the way, when they do, they simply think that people who took offer A and people who took offer B are fair to compare against each other. That assumes that those samples are balanced, as a statistician would say. They're not. You end up getting more women or more older people in one group than another. It's really easy to compare 2 averages to see if 2 averages are different. The really hard part is figuring out if those 2 groups are even comparable in the first place. And that's where more advanced statistical techniques have come in since the 70s, more newer stuff, are actually getting applied. Things like propensity scores, propensity score analysis, propensity score adjustment, Heckman's two-stage modeling, where I can actually look at people who took offer A versus offer B, match them up so that I remove all the characteristics that are different except the offer. Okay? So there's actually very easy ways to do that. But very few people do it. Oh, and by the way, most of the software that they use have less horsepower than Excel does in its stats package. For the past 2 years, simple A/B tests, again, based on the old tools, have resulted in most of the conversion improvements. So what's interesting is when people started to compare offer A and B and match the groups together, they started to see that if they figured out which offer won, they would simply offer that to more people, and lo and behold, conversion rates started to go up. What are they doing now? They're plateauing, or they're dropping because people are realizing that Group A is not exactly Group B, so maybe you shouldn't offer A to everybody. Maybe there's something about Group A that should get A. Again, segmentation. All right? So conversion is up, but it's plateauing. Einstein again. Models should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. That was his first quote I mentioned. Well, if you're going to keep doing the same sort of quote-unquote analytics with your website and your user data that you've done in the past, but you expect things to be different and get better, what did Einstein call that? Einstein had a word for that. If you do things, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, what did he call that? He called that insanity. All right, that's his definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. In fact, he actually referred to it very specifically. It is the art of doing the same thing over and over again, because a scientist would never do that. That was his view. Not bad for a Swiss patent clerk, all right? By the way, some things that might sound a little different. Use more controversial tests. The more different you make offers, the more telling and surprising your results will be. You will actually find out more the more different you make your offers. 10%, 35%, not 10 and 15. Give it to just men and women? No. Segment by other criteria. The more controversial differences you test, the more surprising and more insightful your results are. By the way, don't just test differences in the products. That's easy. Do you like it blue or green? Asking a customer if the customer likes it blue or green tells you what product they like. It does not tell you what the difference between the two customers is. All right? Too much analysis today is done on product differences and whether customers get it, assuming all customers react the same way, as opposed to figuring out what is it that makes customer reactions different and then marketing to that. All right? Far too much segmentation and A/B testing of transactional data is done around what made the product different. Customer didn't make the product different, you did. The customer differences is what you get to deal with as a supplier. Keep it simple. By the way, if you think you need a PhD statistician in SAS to do it, you're probably overthinking it. All right? Think about the easy, simple way to do it. By the way, these folks are really good at it, and they can take really large mounds of data and do very complicated tests. That's fine. But just to get some simple, quick insights, you actually don't need a lot of data that's complicated or something really fancy to process it with. But you should start thinking, instead of what you offer, who you're offering it to. That's where the fundamental difference is, and that's the new concept that's coming in now. 4, 2 more to go. Do you serve customers or do you manage servers? All right. Who created most of this data that we have on customer experience and interface reactivity today? Who created that? No offense here. Who created it? Did people who designed the product or who studied the customers create that stuff? No. Are you in the IT business? Because most of the databases out there that track transactional data or behavioral data are actually built by people who are in the business of building databases, not in the business of selling products and services to customers. That's not a bad thing, it's just different. Are you in the IT business? Are you selling systems, or are you actually trying to sell a solution? Not even a little over 10%, barely 10% of major e-commerce platforms that are out there are built for customer data analytics. Almost all databases and analytics and statisticians and data analysts that are employed by firms that do demand analysis, that do demand planning, are actually working off data and databases that are optimized for the database to perform better and for the network and website and web server to stay up longer. Okay? Charles and I have gotten data from companies, terabytes worth of data. Tell us what our users are doing on our website. Tell us why they're adopting the avatar or they're not. Tell us why they're buying the product that's adjacent, meaning they'll buy the shirt, will they buy the pants? Why aren't they? Terabytes of data. One timestamp. I know when they entered the website. I would like to know when they bought the shirt and when they looked at the pants. And if they came back and looked at the pants, no timestamp coding. Because all that matters is when that customer enters the website and exits to a database manager. When are you using my resource? When are you not? As opposed to when are you doing things that are important to my business? Are the analytics that you are deriving from your database customer focused and tied to a business strategy? If the answer is no to either one of those, rethink what you do. All right? There are charts and graphs galore about database performance and all the customer analytics that we track, etc. But very little of it actually tracks customer behavior. And even less of it still is tied to a business outcome. If you can tell your chief strategist or your CEO or your COO what all your customers are doing in your website, but you can't tell them why, rethink that. Because most of the data and most of the servers and most of the websites out there are actually built to support a back end, not a front end. Interesting stat number 4. On average, in the past year, 2011 data here, on average, e-commerce firms, platforms, spent about $92 a customer to acquire. By the way, what was most of that $92 spent on? Banner ads, what else? That's one. What's the other thing that you spend a lot of money on to get customers? Lists, yeah. You're trying to do contact management. You're trying to buy lists. Okay. Give me your list. I'll hit them and see if I can get them to react. Now that's to get them, $92. How much was spent to retain them after you got them? To actually get them to buy something? $1. $1. 92 times the money was spent just getting the customer to your site. 1/92 of that money was spent trying to get them to buy something. That seems a little backwards, doesn't it? But those are the numbers.
Salespeople versus user experience.
Yeah, that's right. Who drives the $92? Sales. List acquisition, right? Customer acquisition. Who drives retention? Or, not retention, conversion. User experience. This is where the inequity is. User experience bigots unite, okay? That's what we're talking about here. Why do you get $1 when by the time you spent $92, I know who the customer is? I'm trying to change their behavior. I don't care who you are, I care what you do.
The salespeople can show the decision makers the charts and graphs.
Yep, and so can you. Why? Because if the data you're getting out of your website is targeted toward people coming into the database or into the website, the timestamp is when you came in, I can tell you how many visited, how long they stayed there, etc. But did they buy anything? And what was their profitability? That's the harder part. $1 to convert. Now, what in the world would the Icelandic people and Christianity have to do with this? It's all about positioning. As Christianity was moving from Europe west to the new country, moving west over to us, it's very interesting. The Icelandic people got Christianity before we did because they're kind of in the way, right? They're on the way here. Not in the way, sorry, I meant to say on the way. Sorry, no offense to my Icelandic friends, okay? So as Christianity moved west, something very interesting happened. All the priests went to Iceland and started to preach Christianity. And this concept of you had better do these things right, these 10 commandment things, or there's this really hot place where you're going to suffer. Now let's think about that for a second. You live in Iceland. Hell sounds pretty good, all right? The priests actually thought about usability and interface. They just didn't call it that. And they redefined hell. as a really, really cold place. If you think Iceland is cold, just wait till you make one of those mistakes. Okay? It gets even colder. Okay? So getting people to church was easy, but getting them to behave, that required a fundamental change in what the customer thought was important. The buyer, not the supplier. So think about what data is important. Trend 4, retention over acquisition. Think about how to keep them. Think about how to keep them in your database. Think about how to keep them active. Toys R Us, a longtime client, mails over 20,000 Christmas catalogs a year. What happens to about 13,500 of them? They're either thrown away or undeliverable. There are people in that database that have not ordered anything from a catalog for 8 or 9 years. Why would people stop ordering things out of a Christmas catalog from a toy store? I'm thinking because their kids might grow up. Yet that was never a factor. We've got a list, we mail to it. By the way, catalogs are really expensive. All right? So keeping your interfaces fresh and new. By the way, here's an interesting fact. You can get over 100% conversion lift, improvement in your conversion rate, if your products and services on your website are tied to people's ratings and reviews. You ever wonder why Amazon spent so much time doing that? You've never filled one in, but you read them, don't you? Okay, it's true. Reward loyalty, but only the right way. The graphic got in the way here. By the way, Amazon just announced that they're coming out with a form of money, the Amazon coin. All right? So Amazon coins are now going to be a form of currency on Amazon.com, where you can get them the more you buy, and then as you get a hold of them, you can use them for purchases. They're worth about every dollar is worth 1 coin, so a coin is worth about a penny. What else is worth about a penny?
Not a penny.
A frequent flyer mile. Same idea. Think about frequent flyer miles as a form of currency. You don't have to fly to get them, and you don't have to spend them on flights. Eat at a restaurant, get frequent flyer miles. Take those frequent flyer miles, get a Saks Fifth Avenue card, and go shopping. You never have to see the inside of JFK Airport. Okay? Think about that idea here. Customer lifetime value. For so many years, until very recently, marketers and the analysts that support them alike have thought about customer lifetime value. How much is this customer going to mean to my business in the lifetime that customer will be my customer, not the customer's actual, how long they'll be alive, but how long they'll be a customer of mine. What is the value of that? Well, what's interesting is the customer was always thought as something we could control. We could grab that customer, and the value is what we would get out of them buying it. The lifetime was simply how long they chose to stay with us as a seller. Turns out that's getting inverted now. A lot of researchers and a lot of research, especially in usability, as that gets tied, like not what you do but how you do it, actually lifetime is becoming an independent variable. I'm actually going to try to affect how long you're a customer of mine. So customer lifetime value has 3 dimensions. The lifetime has always been the one that people have assumed was a dependent variable. If I give them a lot of value or get a lot out of them and keep them happy as a customer, they'll stay with me longer. Turns out that's not true. So people are actually treating the time a customer stays with us as an independent variable, something they can affect. That's very different. By the way, what's the most important thing that keeps a customer with your brand? What they see when they get to your site or to your app. The words or the pictures? The pictures. Oh, you know that bunny with the drum? The bunny with the drum keeps going. Remember the bunny? What battery is that for? Which is it? Duracell. Energizer. Yeah, it's the Energizer bunny, but what's interesting is almost half of the people randomly surveyed, year to year, swear it's an Energizer battery. Swear it's a Duracell battery. Because you attribute the cool interface to the best product, even though they have nothing to do with each other. Duracell is the copper top. Energizer is the bunny. Yet a lot of people remember the bunny, but equate it to the better brand, the Duracell battery. Happens all the time. So you had better watch your interfaces. If you've got a great interface but not a very good solution, people will love your interface and think it belongs to your competition. Happens all the time, especially in reselling arrangements. Companies that will buy parts, for example, client of ours, will buy parts and then resell those parts or create inventory of those parts. People look at their site and swear they're an auto parts dealer that they really like, but they're not, because they equate two things that are not comparable. Number 5, how do you figure out what to do? Do you actually test stuff? How do you test your new ideas, new interfaces, new user experiences? How do you actually experiment with customers? Do you play God with them? And if so, how? Chances are you don't. What risks do you take? What promotions do you try? What incentives? Now, there's 2 ways to do that. There's the Tebow way, all right? You can launch it. You can work with consultants, write a big, fat document, and pray that it works. Or you can, again, borrow something from science. Scientists are really good at having a theory and backing up and trying 1,000 different ways to prove that theory. Turns out exactly that process works really, really well in business strategy, yet very few people do it. People hire consultants. They want the one answer to pursue, and they pursue that answer, as opposed to the 100 things they could be pursuing with less money, by the way. 100 small experiments does not add up to one big experiment, ever. Try the 100 things, fail 98 times, find 2 things that really work really fast. So how can you do something very cheap, very quick to get to closer to an answer? Turns out the Chicago style of voting, namely vote early, vote often, or in this case, fail early, fail often, actually works better. Companies that rapid cycle prototype, try new things, change the website. How many major releases have you had of your homepage in the past year? If it's not 10 or 15 or 20, you're not testing. You're just making very specific changes, praying that that's going to work. Interesting stat number 5. Turns out, if you actually do the analysis and you look at all the promotional activity that firms do to market products and solutions, it turns out that the number of times they failed at something is actually more highly correlated with their profitability than the number of times they had a successful campaign. How much they fail is better. This comes out of entrepreneurship science. Find an entrepreneur that's gone bankrupt a couple of times, probably a good bet. Find one who only has hockey stick financials. I need your money, but then it's going to climb. Beware. Turns out that how often you don't get it right is actually more predictive of how much money you'll make than how often you get it right. True innovation, not just look and feel tweaks, not just changes in the colors and stuff, is needed, and your users are demanding it. What do your users need? It's not about what you offer. It's about what your user needs. By the way, where does innovation come from? That looks familiar. Did you know that in 1968 there was a computer that looked just like it, called the Dynabook? Now, granted, we didn't quite have the internet, we didn't have apps, okay? But there was a computer that had a flat screen and a keyboard on it. Fascinating how similar those look, isn't it? Where does innovation come from? Turns out most of the great ideas have kind of been thunk already. All right? Not all, but many. We can borrow from that. It takes a village. One of the biggest mistakes that usability testers and interface designers make is that they only talk to each other. When was the last time you talked to a customer? When was the last time you talked to a pissed off customer or a really happy customer? When was the last time you brought your customer into your boardroom? When was the last time you did a merger or an acquisition with your customers as opposed to another group that does more of the same stuff? Who's on your design team? How often do they actually talk to customers? When was the last time you talked to people who aren't your customers? Another big mistake that is getting reversed now in marketing science. Customer surveys, they're already my customers. Of course they're going to like me. I want to talk to people who aren't my customer or have stopped being my customers. That's where some good insights come. Study that I published with some colleagues down in Bethesda, Maryland at the National Cancer Institute. If we can figure out how to cure cancer faster and get drugs approved more quickly, can we borrow from that? Answer is yes. Turns out that principal investigators who are trying to build cancer drugs to kill cancer cells, if they collaborate with more people on more continents who are like them, as opposed to trying to keep all the grant money for themselves, those drugs get to market faster. They get through clinical trials faster. they're more successful in clinical trials, they get approved faster. So it seems weird, but if you hang out with people who are just like you might want to start hanging out with some different people. That might actually help. Okay? Who invented the iPod? There's one name that always comes to mind. Steve Jobs. Sorry, I lied. He's in here twice. All right? I said once, twice. Steve Jobs. That's only the way the device actually looks and feels. Tony Fadell was actually sort of the brain behind this digital music concept. There were people who had to design the platform, the actual interface of how this thing works, and you dial around to get stuff. There's a whole number of people. Texas Instruments, they actually played a pretty big role in the development of the iPod. You probably didn't know that. All right. Toshiba, Wolfson, that's the sound. All right. Sharp, the display. That's kind of funny. Linear Technologies came up with the wheel. Seems backwards. All right. Should they change their name? It's like, did you guys just like mess up one day and yeah? Let's do it nonlinear. Yeah, let's try that. Yeah. So they came up with that. One of the original designs had a slider on it, 2 sliders, so you would use your thumb up and down, but then you get the round one. Okay. So it's not just Steve, and I call him Steve because I know him so well. All right. No. All right. It took a bunch of people. Right? A Boeing aircraft, the vast majority of a Boeing aircraft is not made by Boeing. Boeing assembles it. 6, head forward, head back, or third screen, or is there more than that? It's interesting, usability experts will look at devices because first there was the television. That's about the worst shot of a bad TV I could find online, all right, with the antenna sticking out the back, all right. The computer, remember the big tower, all right. And we might as well pay homage to the phone formerly known as BlackBerry, all right, with the physical keyboard, gone now. First there was this screen, and now this screen. Usability experts refer to a television as a head-back device. Because when you watch a television, you tend to sit back on your couch to watch it. You lean back. You let the TV present to you. A computer, on the other hand, in the middle, you tend to be head forward. You tend to engage forward with it, partly because the keyboard is involved. But you tend to engage forward because you're reading. You're actually interacting very differently, literally, from a posture perspective with a computer than you do a TV. Now, there was a trend, as you know, to try to put this stuff on this thing. Okay? Works somewhat well because you could go from this to kind of watch a movie, sort of. But do you remember all the attempts to create web TV and stuff to go from this to this? That didn't work so well because when you're leaned back watching TV, it just doesn't feel right. Well, now there's the third screen, the magic third screen. Can I do that stuff here? This is pretty straightforward. This is harder because of the size of the screen, although that's slowly getting fixed at some level. So this was easy. We had Nielsen. We knew how many people watched certain programs by putting dials in their house. This was a little bit easier, but still stuck in the 60s, quite frankly, from a data analytic point of view, to figure out what you do with this. Turns out that's really tough. In fact, I'm really excited about the Google guy coming on the mobile stuff coming up next. I'm dying to know how they're addressing that. This comes from Google, by the way. Over 90% of the information that we get on a daily basis comes from a screen, a flat piece of glass. All right? Makes you wonder where the other 10% comes from. Conversations, phone calls maybe. All right? Comes from a screen. And in the old days, it was actually easy to figure out what you did with the screen because you either sat in front of a TV or you sat in front of a computer. Your butt was in a chair or on something. But as soon as we go mobile, and I rip off the picture from apparently thinkstock.com, all right? As we go mobile, that gets really hard because you're not sitting down anymore. You're not positionally stationary, as a usability person would say. You're moving around. So I need to create an application that actually works with you moving as opposed to with you sitting. Oh, and by the way, if I'm trying to figure out how you use that app or why you use that app while you're moving, there's all kinds of environmental factors now that I didn't have to worry about when you were in front of a computer or a TV. Are you walking? Are you on a train? Are you actually connected? Are you not? Okay. How do I figure that out? This is the new frontier for data analytics when it comes to interface and experience design. We're slowly catching up with the computer and the website and the app on how to figure out what you do and why you do it. This is uncharted territory. This is hard because there's a lot of confounders or covariates, as your stats friends would tell you. So we've reached this inflection point. In fact, companies are now releasing the the mobile app before they release the web app. They're doing it for several reasons. One, it's easier. It's stripped down, all right? And it's an easy way to test. Put it on your phone, tweak it, tweak it. Think about it. Think about how often a mobile app updates versus a web app. Okay? So test, 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 see how you do it, and then put those online. It's actually backwards now. We're designing mobile apps first without really knowing how usability and interfaces are going to work while people are moving around, and then trying to take those ideas and put them in stationary-based applications. That's actually really hard to do. It's a big leap of faith, too, that you're going to get it right. There's a lot of new science that's needed to do this. This is full factorial designs. This is having spreadsheets with hundreds of rows and columns, but only being able to test 5 or 6 of them to figure out which way people are going to go. Full factorial designs, CART or GARCH modeling, if you're familiar with this stuff. How do I look at 100 possible things that can affect the way I use an app, but then figure out the 1 or 2 that might matter when I can't look at all 100 of them in the first place? By the way, if you try to apply the old stuff, how we did mail offers, how we do email response, how we do click-throughs and look at that stuff, insufficient, doesn't work. It doesn't work. Correlations are totally off. Covariant matrix is completely backwards. But what's interesting is we can still capture the data as you move around. In fact, it's kind of cool. The great thing about a mobile device is you get a GPS code with it a lot. Now that's cool. I can know where you are and what you're doing where you are. That's interesting. We don't know how to intersect those data sets yet. All right? And getting that data is even harder. By the way, if you think getting data out of a website to figure out what users is doing is limited, it's even worse here. Logged on, logged off. Wrote check. Looked at balance, logged off. And by the way, log off doesn't necessarily mean you logged off. You just either timed out or went through a tunnel or something. Now here's a preview. I'm stealing the next speaker's chart, quite frankly. Great study just came out by Google. Television no longer commands our full attention. 77% of the time that viewers watch TV, it's with another device, so we don't use TVs anymore. Almost half of it's with a phone. There's your third screen. By the way, online shopping, it's not just for your laptop anymore. People will use a series of devices. Oh, and by the way, because people can do it mobile enabled now, 80% of it or more is completely spontaneous. So you're trying to figure out what a customer is going to buy and why they're going to buy it completely spontaneously while they're on the go. We don't have the data. We don't have the covariance matrix. We got the stats, but that's hard. And your next speaker who's coming up is going to talk about how they're trying to decode all that. What data is meaningful? What are the signals versus the noise out in all that stuff? So in summary, here are my key themes. Segment, treat different customers differently, but keep it simple. Don't create 5 really complicated views, create 5 simple ones. Test, 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 test. Getting a customer is easy, keeping them is hard. Don't just talk to yourselves, talk to people who are unlike you, like your customers. And as soon as your customers start moving around, how in the world are we going to attack that when we don't quite yet have the whole problem of stationary usability and interfaces nailed? Which is your last pop quiz. Why does a carpenter buy a drill? That's a drill bit in poor resolution. Why does a carpenter buy a drill bit? Does a carpenter really want a drill bit? What does a carpenter really want? Carpenter wants a hole. Okay? People who make drill bits are actually in the hole selling business. But not too many people think about it like that. Right? Start to think about what your users need and what they want out of your solution. And that will drive you to collect the right data at the right time to try and get a read on it. And by the way, who's really your customer? Gratuitous shot of my 2 daughters with a little photoshopping and advertising for free. All right? All right? Lisa and Vanessa, you're not designing this stuff for you. We're past. You're designing it for them because they're the ones that are comfortable with it, much more so than we are. Talk to them. One of the biggest advances in kitchen cutlery and utensils was done by Xylus, if you know this company, when they gave a bunch of kitchen utensils to kids to play with. They gave them to kids and senior citizens. Turns out a can opener is actually really hard for a kid or a senior citizen to use. They came up with a better one. A pizza cutter is hard to use. They came up with a better one. Who are you going to test and who are you going to talk to get a better idea about what your customers really want? Because they're coming. And last time I talked to them, boy, do they want credit cards. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, let's have some questions for Paul. Anybody have anything you'd like? Must be one or two. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Judy.
Hi.
Question about the segmentation stuff. We talked a little bit about finding the right segments, and then Spotify came up, which I see more as a one-to-one targeting. So is there a segmentation in Spotify because it really just goes based on my data with a very complex algorithm, and which one of them do you think works better? Like target one user and build the complete algorithm behind it that you need so you actually do everything based on that one user behavior, or define users into different segments and then kind of like work with the different segments at the risk of...
The second one. Just think about what's worked in the past. The reason we all have 4 or 5 different credit cards in our wallet and not 10 or 15 or just one is because there's one card that's like us in some times, and there's another card that helps us in other times, right? One's about miles, one's about points, one's about something else. So actually creating segments that are meaningful, but not too many of them, works well. Now, this is where the mobile stuff is going to get very interesting, because if I have mobile apps, I'm actually able to mass customization. So I'm able to actually customize the interface for you on your phone, because I know actually who you are and where you are and what you're doing. Spotify is a great example of that. I can actually almost create segments at the individual level. Now, the jury's out on whether that's going to be meaningful or whether that's computationally possible. It'll end up being 4 or 5 different looks on 4 or 5 broad categories of people. But algorithmically and theoretically, it's possible. Okay. By the way, it's also theoretically and algorithmically possible to create customized drugs, a drug that will work on your body differently than on his body. It's possible. It's just it's really, really hard to do that. And even if I could do it, now there's how do I possibly create a plant that does that? Okay.
But I guess my question is how segmenting is very difficult in the way you're describing. What's the magic sauce for making sure you have the right segments as you're going about?
The magic sauce is to not get wedded to any particular segment and to keep testing to see what matters. Because the easy things like gender, age, income profile, past spending profile, people generally know those. Especially in this country where you tell me your age and your zip code, I'll figure out what your FICO score is, know what your credit worthiness is. As soon as I know that, I can figure out your likelihood to spend, your propensity to default on a loan or a credit card. I can find out a lot of stuff by proxy that way. So that stuff's been done. But how do I segment based on what you do inside a site? You need data that enables you to do that. Some people are getting good at it. Some people like Amazon are actually tracking not just where you end up, but how you ended up there to the site, to the spot in the website. So there become these big neural networks and patterns of analysis, pattern recognition. In the same way a scanner can read a barcode on a box of cereal, I should be able to kind of read a barcode as you flow through a website.
Segmenting by behavior.
Segmenting by behavior, segmenting by need or behavior basis as opposed to characteristics about you. Now, what that means is I have to experiment because there's not 7 behaviors that I know everyone will exhibit. So I have to experiment. And that constant experimentation, segmentation loop is what's missing. The data's there, the statistics is there. But it actually takes some investment to do that.
On this same topic of segmentation, I want to get a comment from you on a very famous mobile phone maker, Apple. Well, this one is the only phone maker that doesn't do segmentation. They have one product, the iPhone. Any of the other phone makers that you care to know about and that exist, you know, Samsung, Nokia, you name it, they have at least 10 models or more at any point in time. So why do you have an explanation for that? Why they don't segment and why they are having the success that they are having?
Anybody? I have an answer to that. I'm curious if anybody else has an answer.
They're targeting a market, you know, an affluent market that will spend an extra dollar for a device that's shiny.
By the way, how much money does Apple make off their phones? What's the margin on an iPhone? Near zero. Why? Where do they make their money? Where does Apple make money?
iTunes Store.
Yes.
Their segmentation is based on the use of that phone. Why create 10 different phones and think of the product difference? Give everybody the same phone and segment on how they're going to use it. Apps, music, content, other stuff, accessories. The case you put around your iPhone is more profitable to Apple than the phone that goes in the case. Okay? So the phone, it is truly, and it is truly a razor and blade example. I will give you the razor because I know you're going to come back and buy the blades. There aren't too many economic examples I can come up with that are like razors and blades. But the iPhone and apps is a pretty close one. I'll give you the phone. Have a phone. Or I'll make a little money off of it and it'll trail off. Okay? I bought my 10-year-old her first phone. It's iPhone 4. It cost me 99 cents. Okay? Now, does anybody want to guess how much money she spent, hypothetically, on the iTunes Store and on apps? Other questions?
So you propose sort of like A/B, you know, giving 2 groups of users 2 different user experiences. What's the trade-off between giving them a radical change in user experience and a more gradual iterative change?
There's 2 ways to boil a frog. Okay? Old Harvard Business School case. There's 2 ways to boil a frog. Take the frog, put the frog in boiling water. Lots of thrashing, lots of behavior. You can see lots of behavior of the frog. The other way is put the frog in cold water, heat the water. Frog doesn't realize really what's going on until time passes. That's the challenge, is if you make gradual changes, the more gradual the change, the harder a behavior detection you can see. So if you make more radical differences, the easier it is to see true behavioral change. And that's why.
But how do you detect what elements made that change?
It depends on what it is that you created that was a radical change. So you try to keep a few things constant, but again, there's factorial models and statistics that allow you to do this. Conjoint analysis is the simplest one, where I can actually change 4 or 5 or 6 variables, the price, the color, the feature set, etc. But I won't show you all of them at once because it's too hard for you to process. But I will show you me and her, then I'll show her, then I'll show her and him, and I will get you to prioritize, and I'll figure out which of those attributes you thought was most important. Now I've got you. Okay? Other questions?
How come if this stuff is so easy, only 44% are using it?
Because
That's what I don't understand.
because the data's not there. The data's not there. If all I have is data that comes largely out of a database managed solution that tells me when somebody hit the website, that they bought something, 1 or 0, and when they exited, I can't segment based on that. That's why. The data's not there. I mean, think about it. There was a time that we tested drugs by, here, try this. We didn't care about your genotype. We didn't care about your blood cholesterol. We didn't care about your liver enzyme. We didn't care about any of those things until we had the diagnostics to find ways to create groups who are similar or different. We're not quite there yet. We are literally trying things and praying that the measure we see move is causal. And it's not always. Others?
This is probably a little off topic, but I kind of want to hear too about thoughts around prototyping tools and how valuable they are in the design process.
They can be very valuable if those prototyping tools have the ability for you to truly do some radical things that are customer driven. If the prototyping tool just allows you to change a look, a feel, a skin, a system element, not terribly helpful. Somebody had a quote in some of the research that Charles and I have done where they said, if you think that people are going to adopt or not adopt your site if you change the color of a button, then you might as well try to teach your cat to bark. All right? That's what you're banking on. So the challenge is, again, prototyping tools are largely engineering driven, not behavioral driven. Okay? Engineering is easy. Did you push the button or not? Behavior, why did you push the button and how hard did you push it? That's hard.
If you look at the financial industry and you consider your trends, what opportunities do you see for maybe credit card companies or Fidelity to do something really bold, or what do you think they're missing? Like, do you wish that there were people in the financial industry in this audience?
They're missing the ability to sort of conglomerate things. I mean, I worked with Merrill Lynch to help create their One Merrill concept, because you used to have to call that person for your bank account, that person for your stock account, that person for your life insurance, that division, etc. All they did was they put all that wizard behind a big curtain in front of somebody called a personal wealth advisor. Sounds fancy, huh? Personal wealth advisor. It's just somebody who is able to make those connections without you having to do it. All right. So what are the advantages? Credit card growth in the United States has been flat for at least 15 years. We have not issued more credit cards. It's a zero-sum game. If you don't spend on that card, you'll spend on that card. So credit card growth is flat. It's all about driving charge volume. How do I get you to use your card to buy more things, like gas, like micro purchases, like stamps, those types of things, and still make money off of it? That's where a lot of the financial institutions is going, not by buying big stuff, but by buying small stuff and amalgamating that and still giving you rewards to do it. Okay? Think about that. What's the smallest amount you've ever spent on a credit card? Maybe a couple dollars. But there's a lot of things you spend less money on, right? And there are by proxy ways to do it. So you've got a Starbucks card, which is tied to a credit card and those types of things. But in financial services, where a lot of the growth go now is I want all of your behavior, not just a slice of it, and then I'll figure out how to manage and segment to that. In financial services, we're still a little bit behind the curve where we're talking about cross-sells. Oh, you've got a mortgage? I want to give you a boat loan. You've got a boat? I want to sell you a new credit card. So I'm trying to cross-sell at a product level, not at a service level. Okay, and that's where the Hartford, for example, which has folks who can sell you automobile policies, but also the umbrella around it, and then hook you into a life policy, and they sort of know when you get married, they know when you have kids, and they actually buy that level of data to know about life events. That starts to look more behavioral. Changes that they find out about you that you don't have to tell them about. That starts to look a little bit more like behavioral response as opposed to, oh, I have this product I can sell. You know, anybody need a watch, right? That type of thing.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I know we talked mostly business and marketing point of view, but do you think these same processes are used easily in like a campaign where the product is an action they take offline?
Mm-hmm. In fact, where's a great example of that? In fact, I would argue our ability to behaviorally segment and influence people's behavior is very, very good at something that just happened a few months ago, a presidential election. We're really good at that. But it's hard for me to get you to buy the blue can versus the pink can, right? So yeah, there are ways to try to get that behavior when the choice is limited. See, that's one of the challenges. Why are iPhones so popular? Because there's one of them. Remember I told you, there's this sort of myth that the more options you give people, the more they'll buy. No, they actually buy much less. So when it's between two candidates, or a candidate that has one of two positions, I can actually steer behavior relatively well with targeted campaigning. But if I try to pick among 6 or 7 or 8 different choices at different points in time, that gets a lot harder.
You mentioned earlier, though, that some successful companies are ones that fail a lot. That Sony used to fail a lot, and things that stuck against the wall made a ton of money. And Now Samsung is doing the same thing. You know, they throw a lot of things out there different than Apple.
They spent $1 billion to build their brand. Yeah.
And some things stick, like that big screen phone, making a ton of money. So it's a different perspective, different angle than Apple. Is that not as valuable as you actually mentioned?
Well, I think it's absolutely valuable, but the thing is, think about Apple. Apple is largely I mean, for lack of a better term, a two-product firm, right? They've got a phone and they've got a computer, right? Whereas Samsung is trying to sell you a phone and a speaker and a TV and a refrigerator, et cetera, right? So what they're trying to do is splatter a bunch of stuff up on the wall and see what sticks in different categories. I would actually also argue that Samsung and actually now LG is actually getting really good at figuring out behavior. We talked about Gary Shapiro, who's coming from Consumer Electronics Association. Has everybody seen the new, very user-friendly refrigerator? An internet-attached refrigerator that actually watches your inventory, knows when you're depleted on stuff, orders because it knows the barcodes. It's got RFID chips, so it just sends the order to Peapod. Back it comes. You interface with it just like you do a computer. Okay, so it's small market that wants it, but something that is a pretty powerful experiment. And can we do the same thing with other? Think about all the devices in your home that really are in need of a user experience upgrade, like a stove, okay, like a microwave, all right, things like that, like the phone was for Apple, all right. So yeah, there are spectacular failures and successes. Some of them very carefully selected sniper shots, like the iPhone, okay, which grew out of the iPod, right? In fact, Jobs had a funny picture one time. They took an iPod and put a rotary dial on it and said that was the iPhone. But that wouldn't have been successful, right? But whereas multi-category players like the LGs, et cetera, are actually testing lots of different things, seeing what the appetite is, and then going. Sony's kind of forgotten how to do that, okay? By the way, it used to take, from market capitalization standpoint, it used to take 150 Apples to equal a Sony. Now it takes 250 Sonys to equal an Apple. All right, it's a blockbuster Netflix flip. Okay, it's literally one of those, driven largely by innovation and actually listening to customers at some level. Last question.
In terms of the resources, so let's say if you have $100 and you can pay 5 people with that, is there some sort of a magic rule of thumb of back-end programmers and the database administrators and things? And operations versus usability? I'd
go hire 4 people who can get in touch with your customers as closely as possible and 1 person to do the spreadsheets. The challenge is customer analytics is backwards on that. And it doesn't include people who touch the customers. Okay.
Is big data a solution? Is social media trending on that?
Big data is part of the solution as long as it doesn't result in only a little information.
Right.
Okay. Data we got. Information we don't got. All right.
Okay, on that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Great.